Hello and welcome once again to The Blueprint. This is Canada's Conservative Podcast. I'm your host, Jamie Schmale, Member of Parliament for Haliburton, Kawartha, Lightsprock, with new content every single Tuesday. We're a bit early. It's usually at 1:30 p.m. Eastern Time. We invite you to join us. Not only that, we need you to like, comment, subscribe, share this program, help us push back against the ever-moving Liberal agenda. I normally was going to say this and move on to my next part, but Bill C-10, this is the topic we're going to be talking about today. That potentially may have led to the Blueprint being canceled. Justin Trudeau obviously didn't want any scrutiny of his vision, his musings. So we're glad that changes are being made, but we're not quite sure they're actually going to be the changes we want. To help us talk about it, we're bringing in Rachael Harder, the Member of Parliament for Lethbridge, also the Shadow Minister for Digital Government. Welcome to the first time on this program.
Thank you, Jamie. It's so nice to be here with you today.
All right, we're going to kick off Bill C-10 discussion in just one moment. Today is May the 4th, and of course, our leader is a big fan of Star Wars. He has this video. I think we should share it because it's appropriate being May 4th.
This is going to be our greatest adventure.
Yes, taken down. Taken down. That is very sad. And you saw the little Empire emblem here as the Galactic Empire brings its will down on the people. So we'll quickly just give a background. So C-10, it was introduced last November. It was slowly making its way through the committee process. It was just kind of doing its thing. It was meant to kind of make the big web giants pay. And then a couple of weeks ago on a Friday at committee, the Liberals who dominate committee took a clause out that would have exempted user-generated content like those from Facebook and TikTok, YouTube, that kind of thing from government regulation. The government continued and said, it's no big deal. There's no problem to see here, even though the Heritage Minister, Guilbeault, could not explain it at all. Now they're saying, after pressure, they're going to bring an exemption back in that will hopefully make this crystal clear. But they had one at first, which was no big deal. Maybe you can unpack this. It's hard to follow. Liberal logic.
Well, that's exactly it, Jamie. It is difficult to follow. You're entirely right. There was a clause originally in this legislation when it was announced in the fall. That clause protected the content that individuals would put on their social media pages. And then, about a week ago at committee, that was removed. And of course, Canadians were rightly outraged because, let's be honest, at the end of the day, they want to be able to put up their cat video or a video of them dancing in their kitchen, or, maybe they're having a barbecue with friends and they post that. They want that freedom without, having that content censored by the government or an arm of the government. That said, Canadians pushed back. Of course, Conservatives have pushed back. Now, Minister Guilbeault is telling us that he's going to come forward with an amendment, and somehow that this amendment is going to clarify that individuals are protected. I haven't seen that wording. I look forward to seeing that wording, but I think what needs to be highlighted here is that this is yet another Liberal attempt at trying to save face. They're trying to make themselves look innocent. They're trying to say, all along they never meant to infringe upon, Canadians' rights. Look, over and over and over again in question period, the minister has buckled down on this and has tried to push this legislation through. If there's any change that is made, it is because the Canadian people were effective in using their voice and pushing back for what matters.
Keep in mind, this is not the first time these Liberals have tried to take away the role of an opposition party or opposition voices. You remember in the previous parliament, what was known as, I believe, Motion 6 led to Elbowgate. That was taking away the powers that the opposition have in the House of Commons. Then we fast forward to the pandemic. The first thing the Liberals do when the kind of restricted parliament was brought back, fake parliament, if you will, was to bring in a bill that gave the executive branch sweeping powers to spend or tax on anything they wanted up until 2022, free reign. Basically, any opposition voice, again, trying to be censored. And now we have Bill C-10, which had that clause that protected freedom of speech, and they took it out. acted so confused when people were upset, couldn't believe it. Why would you want to have opposing views? And here we are again. It's as if this is a path, a pattern with this government.
Yeah, absolutely. That's exactly it. I think this government has proven themselves again and again and again to be against freedom. And look, at the end of the day, Jamie, you and I both know that freedom is messy. It is. To grant people freedom can be messy. But the alternative to that is a dictatorship. The alternative to that is government control. The alternative to that, I would argue, is absolutely soul-crushing and destructive. And so if we want to contend for and protect the Canadian society in which we live and the freedoms that we enjoy, we have to push back on these things, because the Liberals want nothing more than to push their ideological agenda and impose their value set on Canadians. I mean, another example of this, Jamie, is we saw this, a few years back in 2018 with the Canada Summer Jobs Grant. They said companies could apply for the grant, but they needed to sign off on a statement of values. Well, who created those values? Liberals created those values. And if businesses or, not-for-profit organizations weren't willing to sign off on that value set, then they didn't get the grant. That's wrong. It is wrong for the government to dictate the values that an organization needs to sign off on.
When you're talking about the values, let's unpack that a bit. Without this clause, without this exemption giving people the right to post whatever they want on YouTube or TikTok or whatever platform, that sends this country potentially down a very, very dark and dangerous path. I don't think many Canadians, regardless of how they vote, would be happy with that.
Absolutely. And this is where I would again contend this is not a partisan issue, or at least it shouldn't be. Protecting Canadians' charter rights should just be a no-brainer for every single political party. But for whatever reason, Conservatives seem to be the only ones that are willing to raise our voices and really contend for the protection of freedom of expression, freedom of belief, freedom of opinion. And so, kudos to our colleagues. And again, kudos to Canadians for using their voices to speak out and to show that they are incredibly unhappy and even outraged with the current legislation that is before the House, Bill C-10.
And what is funny is we, as Conservatives, raised many concerns about this bill prior to the clause being taken out a few Fridays ago, and no one was really paying attention. So I'm glad the media finally caught up. But I just want to say, if this was Stephen Harper as Prime Minister, and Stephen Harper brought in this bill, the media would be losing their collective minds, and it's just been a slow burn here, and they're finally catching up.
Yeah, it's so interesting, right? Just to see the discrepancy there between the way that we would, perhaps be treated if we were in the same boat. Again, at the end of the day, we know that the Liberals enjoy some protections from the media that we aren't and weren't granted as Conservatives. Nevertheless, I would just highlight again, I think because Canadians have been so vocal on this topic and have made their voices heard, the media, has started to be sympathetic to them. And therefore, they've given us as Conservatives an opportunity to have our voices heard as well, which, I genuinely appreciate.
So the Heritage Minister, Stephen Guilbeault, says he is going to bring a new clause that will make it crystal clear that there won't be that government regulation on these kind of social media platforms. Do we trust him?
Frankly, no. I would say that Minister Guilbeault has been sneaky. He has been disingenuous. He's been crafty. Anytime in question period where he has been asked to respond to our concerns, he has resorted to the typical Liberal response, which is deflect, attack, deflect, repeat. And that's generally their response. And again, it's shameful, and so just even in the House this week, we saw that the Liberals were incapable of disagreeing without being disagreeable. I asked the minister a question. He wasn't able to answer. It made him feel uncomfortable. And so instead of actually engaging with the issue at hand, he decided to deflect and attack me on personal values and beliefs that I hold. Again, I would never wish for freedom of speech to be taken from the minister. We have the freedom to use or misuse our voice. I would contend that the minister misused his voice. Rather than answering the question, he decided to attack me. But again, that's his freedom to do so. He now has to bear the consequences. And of course, you know, at the end of the day, it just makes it obvious that he is trying to deflect from the issue at hand. Jamie, my point is this. If they cannot give a straight answer in the House of Commons, if the minister cannot defend this piece of legislation, why would I trust him to be able to bring forward an amendment that is going to serve Canadians well, and for him to be straight up, honest, and forthright about that? He hasn't possessed those qualities thus far. I have my doubts about whether or not he's able to possess those qualities going forward, but maybe he'll prove me wrong.
Well, I would almost say that I haven't seen the Prime Minister answer a question in question period in almost 6 years now. So
that's fair.
Maybe, you know, it'll happen someday, but I don't see it. But yeah, I should have, it's my mistake. I should have had that video of question period yesterday queued up, and I apologize for that, where the minister just basically gaslit you. He didn't even answer it. He just attacked you on a personal level. And really that shows that they had nothing. The minister had nothing. You had him dead to rights, and he just flips on the personal attack button.
Yeah. You know, I mean, that certainly was the case yesterday. He didn't even refer to the question that I asked him. He just launched, you know, straight into personal attack. Like I said, you know, I feel that it was inappropriate. At the same time, freedom is messy. He chose to misuse his freedom. And, you know, at the end of the day, I think Canadians can see through it.
Absolutely. So what are we looking for in this clause that the Liberals say they're going to bring in? Is, you know, obviously this dark and dangerous path without it allows the government to determine what is basically speech they don't agree with, right? So eventually where the dark and dangerous path goes, anything that becomes contrary to the government view, the government narrative, the government message becomes content that is offensive in some way. And so we want to avoid that altogether, allow people to post their opinions on social media and have the freedom to do so. So is that kind of what we're looking for? Any specific language that you'd like to see?
Well, I think certainly, you know, when the minister brings forward this amendment, I'm going to be looking for language that is succinct, precise, definable, you know, and of course I'm going to seek the opinions of legal experts, including also, you know, Peter Menzies, former CRTC co-chair. And so that being the case, you know, I'm gonna want to see what they say with regard to this amendment and how it's brought forward. But what I find interesting is, you know, the minister thus far, when he has had questions posed to him or concerns raised, or when people have disagreed with his legislation, he's labeled them as quote unquote extremist. If he labels those individuals as extremist and therefore squelches their voice, it doesn't give me a lot of confidence in his intent when it comes to protecting individual rights and freedoms concerning the content people post. I don't know that he's really interested in that. I think he's interested in appearing as if he cares. I think he's interested in saving face. I think he's interested in getting the media off his back. You know, but at the end of the day, is he truly interested in making sure that Canadians are rightly protected? No, I don't think so. So you know, obviously I'm a skeptic when it comes to this amendment that's coming forward. I'll be reading it very closely. And as I said, I'll be seeking legal opinions from individuals who are experts in this field as well.
I think we should also ensure that Canadians continue to write into the minister and try to keep pressure on that this is a very clear definition.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And again, I think, you know, if there's one reason, you know, why the minister would actually change this, it's because of the voices of Canadians, because they matter. And so I would encourage Canadians from coast to coast to speak up, to have their voices heard, to express their concerns. Let's fill the minister's inbox. Let's, you know, make his phone ring off the hook. Let's have our voices heard, because right now we have the freedom to express our opinions. Right now we have the freedom to make our voices heard. But if we do not defend those rights and freedoms right now, I believe this government is going in the direction of actually squelching those voices and preventing them from being heard. That's a scary spot to land at.
Rachael Harder, we are almost out of time, so I want to do a happy thing. I want to congratulate you on your recent engagement. You had a COVID engagement. Congratulations. Well done. And I also give the floor to our guest for the final word, the final message. It's all you.
Jamie, well, thank you so much for that congratulatory note. Of course, my fiance and I are very excited to be getting married. And not only are we going to have a COVID engagement, but also a COVID wedding. And so we're looking forward to our small wedding of 10 in June. And I look forward to my colleagues having the opportunity to meet him and hopefully, for friendships to form. With that, I would just say, when it comes to the legislation that is in front of us, ultimately, at the end of the day, the goal of the Conservative members within the House of Commons is to stand up for and protect the voices of Canadians. And those voices are often expressed through social media platforms, which is becoming the new public square. And so we must do everything that is in our power to defend that space and the freedom that Canadians have to post the things that matter most to them within it.
Thank you very much, Rachael Harder, the Member of Parliament for Lethbridge, also the Shadow Minister for Digital Government. We will have her on again. That is a great show. We do appreciate her time. I know she's busy. This topic is heating up ever more, and we appreciate the support from Canadians right across the country to keep pressure on this Liberal government. Remember, please like, comment, subscribe, share this program. Help us push back against the ever-moving Liberal agenda with new content every single Tuesday at 1:30 p.m. Eastern Time. Of course, if you can't watch this all now on Facebook, please download it. Listen to it later on platforms like CastBox, Google Play, iTunes, Spotify, you name it. It is out there. We do appreciate your time. We do appreciate Rachel's appearance. We'll have her on again. Like I said, remember, low taxes, less government, more freedom. That's the blueprint.